Hey everyone, the fight against flooding is currently underway. With flooding at an all-time historical high, floodwaters are ravishing and ruining areas all over the world. Floods often happen without warning, and when they do, the rapid rushing waters can wash out everything in their path. Thankfully though, we do have options to fight against flooding. These amazing inventions are designed to stop the water in its tracks. So let's begin today's video, and we're going to take a look at 15 of the most amazing anti-flood inventions. Number 15. Quick Dam Flood Barrier. The Quick Dam flood barriers are the fastest growing flood protection device in North America, and as such, they're widely available from the big box stores that specialize in home decor, like Lowe's, Rona, and the Home Depot. They are an ingenious anti-flood invention due to their simplicity, their ease of use, and their reliability. And they look pretty unassuming at first glance, too. In fact, they look a lot like your average sandbag, but they're far more versatile and far less backbreaking than sandbags. Quick Dam flood barriers are strips of fabric that can be laid out wherever there's a threat of flooding, like along the perimeter of a house, for example. The beauty of Quick Dam flood barriers is that they can absorb water at lightning speed, and a lot of it, too. In fact, the bags can go from simple strips of fabric to 32 pounds in just 10 minutes. They come in varying lengths, 5 feet, 10 feet, 17 feet, so they can be combined to create long barriers where needed. They also stay flat while absorbing water, so they can be stacked as the water rushes in. Quick dams are literally a quick way to make a dam, and it's no wonder that this versatile and amazing flood prevention device is gaining popularity with flash flood speed. Number 14. Agger's Self-Closing Flood Barrier. We can't be in every location when a flood hits, and floods hit all locations simultaneously. And knowing this, Agger's has created a self-closing flood barrier that doesn't need the presence of a person to activate it. It's called the Agger's Self-Closing Flood Barrier, or the SFCB, and it deploys as soon as the floodwaters hit. The system uses the force of the water to automatically raise the barrier. Once this barrier is raised, everything behind it is protected. The system is an all-purpose anti-flood barrier that has a number of applications. Because it is self-closing, the barrier can be used in any critical infrastructure. It can also be used at primary or secondary dikes, as well as for underground infrastructure like tunnels and subways. It would also be perfect for places where people aren't always physically there, like businesses. Because the barrier's on permanent standby, and because it literally only needs floodwaters to activate, it's an ingenious anti-flood solution that can help protect important places without requiring people present. The SFCB doesn't require any electricity to activate either, and when it's not in use, it's invisible. Each barrier is made to last for 50 years, so it's a great investment. Number 13. The Thames Barrier. The Thames River flows through southern England, and at 215 miles in length, it's the longest river that's entirely in England, as well as the second longest river in the UK. And while the river boasts a number of benefits, it provides 2/3 of London's drinking water and has historically been a crucial means of transporting goods. The river has one very significant drawback, though. It's prone to flooding. As such, engineers have been working for a very long time to find a way to keep the waters at a safe level. So in 1984, the Thames Barrier began its work. This barrier is a movable barrier system, and the entire system is made out of hollow steel. The system is basically gates that can open and close as needed. When waters rise and flooding is imminent, the gates close so the water can't get through. Since their installation, the Thames Barrier gates have been used successfully more than 100 times, and their track record of success speaks to just how amazing and ingenious this anti-flooding invention really is. Number 12. Top Mix Permeable. Diverting water is an important part of flood control. It's the basic thing. But what if we could do more with water absorption? Floods happen everywhere, roads, parking lots included. So a British company called Top Mix has created a way to get rid of floodwaters. It's called Top Mix Permeable, and it's basically a new type of concrete that can absorb way more water than traditional concrete. Traditional concrete doesn't really absorb water too well, so on a flat surface like a parking lot, the water tends to stick around and pool. This is problematic, especially when flooding is concerned. But Top Mix Permeable Paving Concrete has patented draining properties that allow it to absorb up to 250 gallons of water per 1 square meter of pavement, and it can do that in just minutes. The company assures that their pavement has all the same performance capabilities and characteristics as conventional concrete, so it can be used pretty much anywhere that conventional concrete's used, like driveways and parking lots. But because it can absorb so much water, it's an optimal choice for urban areas because it can help alleviate the effects of flooding. Number 11. Aqua Dam. Aqua dams don't just stop floodwaters, they control them. Now, Aqua Dam is a temporary water-filled coffer-dam flood barrier that's designed to control and divert water. The dam part consists of a water bladder with two inner tubes besides each other. The inner tubes are watertight, and when they're filled with water, they take on their form, and they create a lightweight yet very stable barrier. They are pretty easy to install, requiring only a few portable water pumps, an on-site water supply, and a couple of laborers. The dam will unroll as it's filled with water. It's made from very flexible material, so the dam can shape itself and conform to almost any surface with really good sealing capabilities. This allows for minimal water seepage, and according to the website, aqua dams are ideal for construction projects, water storage dams, water discharge, emergency response, and overall flood control. The sizing options are customizable too, and this anti-flood invention is highly efficient, environmentally conscious because they're made from materials with no environmental impact. They're cost-effective and very fast to both implement and very fast to both install and remove. Number 10. HESCO Floodline. Okay, we all know that sandbags are an effective means of flood protection, but as more and more flooding threatens our cities, our towns, and our homes, new methods and inventions need to come about. Sandbags have worked for a very long time, but they are becoming somewhat stagnant as far as flooding goes. They're an old idea and they require a lot of work to move around and place. The HESCO Floodline is the brainchild of the British company that bears the same name, HESCO. They work in a similar way to sandbags, but they take the concept of sandbags one step further by creating an entire fence. The floodline, or the fence, is put together using individual modules. These modules can be placed as needed and then filled with sand. This way, the length of the fence can be increased as needed. The HESCO Floodline is a fantastic way to fight flooding, since it's extremely versatile and can cover large areas too. The barrier itself is very strong, and the company claims it can withstand not only rapid floodwater, but also large amounts of debris. Number 9. Seawalls. One of the simplest but most ingenious ways to keep something unwanted out is to build a wall. We build walls for our houses, walls between land like fences, and even massive walls to separate regions like the Great Wall of China or the Berlin Wall. So it's only natural we took this idea and applied it to the sea. We don't want water coming in onto the land, so we build a wall. Seawalls are built in some areas where the sea impacts the coast. Areas prone to tidal waves or tsunamis are often locations for seawalls. Sometimes seawalls become a place for people to walk along too, like the Malecon in Havana or the Ventor on the Isle of Wight in England. Seawalls are built from a number of different materials like wood, aluminum, boulders, steel, and even fiberglass composite. They are highly effective at preventing flooding, but they also require a lot of maintenance and upkeep. They form a strong and hard coastal defense and have been used since ancient times. So although it's not a new anti-flood invention, it is one that stood the test of time. Tried, tested, and true. Want to keep the water out? Then simply build a wall. Number 8. Old school dikes. Alright, we're going old school for this next one and talking about dikes. All around the world, dikes have allowed people to live and prosper in flood-prone areas. Also called a levee, a dike is an embankment that's built along a coastal shoreline or a riverbank. It prevents floodwaters from flowing onto the land and onto the other side of it. Dikes can be made from compacted earth and are often outfitted with gates, pumps, and/or flood boxes. Sometimes dikes are protected by something called a riprap, which is an engineered layer of rock pieces. Dikes have their limits though. They're usually designed to protect against a specific level of flooding, so they can't really stop all floods. They stop a lot though, and since they're more cost-effective than massive infrastructure, dikes are one of the most common forms of flood protection worldwide. Number 7. Rain gardens. Well, this sounds like a lovely idea. Rain gardens. They might not be an anti-flood invention that can protect an entire city or region, and it won't stop flash floods from damaging your home. But sometimes, something small can be a big difference. That's essentially the idea behind rain gardens. When it floods, it creates stormwater runoff. Now, this runoff can be caused by too much rain, a flood, or even a large snowmelt. Runoff water makes its way onto streets, parking lots, rooftops, pretty much anywhere there's a relatively flat surface. But when that flat surface is not absorbent, like concrete instead of soil, the water has nowhere to go. It can't be absorbed. Furthermore, when runoff water does move across surfaces, it can pick up the chemicals on those surfaces, or garbage, or other harmful sediments that can then get carried into local waterways. This can cause damage to local water ecosystems. In fact, it's estimated that upwards of 70% of water pollution comes from runoff water, so it's a problem that needs to be addressed. Luckily, there's a solution that's pretty simple. Rain gardens, or stormwater gardens as they're sometimes called, are gardens made up of native perennial plants. The best place to plant rain gardens is at the end of a sloping driveway, but anywhere you've got space will help. It may seem small in comparison to some of the largest inventions on this list, but rain gardens prevent stagnant waters, so goodbye those pesky mosquitoes. And they also help mitigate the problems caused by runoff waters. Simple? Yeah, but effective. Number 6. Good old dams. Alright, I would be remiss if I didn't include the most influential invention of all time when it comes to flood control. Good old dams. Dams, they protect against flooding by collecting and holding water when it reaches a certain level. From there, it can release the water back into a river at a controlled speed, or divert the water to a different location. And while some dams have multiple uses like clean energy, there is a type of dam that's built solely for flood control. Flow-through dams, or perforated dams as they're also called, are built in downstream areas and feature a spillway that's the same level as the riverbed. When there isn't any excess water, the river will simply keep on flowing naturally. But when the water gets too high, the flow-through dam will slow down the flow of water. Flow-through dams are plentiful along major rivers and are highly effective in flood prevention. Dams might not be the most surprising or creative entry on this list, but given their track record and effectiveness, they deserve at least a nod. Number 5. Ike's Dike. Having floodwaters rush onto your property is the nightmare of many, but there are inventions for that. Tools that will help you mitigate the damage and divert that fast-moving water away from your doors, windows, and property perimeters. Many floods are caused by high rains or atmospheric rivers, and we all know too well that we can't control the weather, and all we can do is try to mitigate its aftermath. But not all floods are caused by high rains. Some of the most significant and catastrophic floods are caused by hurricanes and tidal waves. Masses of water straight from the ocean sweeping and cascading onto the coastline. Given this, is it any wonder that we've tried to find ways to stop those perilous waters right at the source? Ike's Dike is one such invention. Now, this was invented by engineers from the United States Army, and it's a $29 billion proposal to help protect the Texas Gulf from the hurricanes that ripped through that area. The proposal came about after 2008, when Galveston, Texas was decimated by flooding. Part seawall, part gate system, Ike's Dike consists of two 650-foot-long gates with a height of 250 feet at the mouth of Galveston Bay, along with an additional gate system. This is along with another 43 miles of high dunes, 14 feet high, that will act as an additional barrier. Needless to say, a project of this magnitude takes time to implement, but preventing the water from coming in can help save thousands of homes and buildings, so the time and price tag is worth it. Ike's Dike is a monster of a project, and it's going to take years to complete. But once it's finished, Ike's Dike will help protect the hurricane-prone area of the Texas Gulf Coast from further potential flooding. Number 4. The Sandmaster. This next amazing anti-flood invention takes something that's already tried, tested, and true in the world of flooding and improves upon it. Sandbags are a staple for many when it comes to flooding, as we've discussed. But they are heavy, they're cumbersome, and they're time-consuming. And when those floodwaters are coming, time is of the essence. Enter the Sandmaster. Now, this crazy-looking machine can fill multiple sandbags at one time, saving massive amounts of time. Furthermore, it can take those sandbags all at once to the location and place them where needed. So instead of setting up assembly lines that transfer one sandbag at a time, with the Sandmaster, people can literally fill and move many sandbags at once. In fact, this machine is so amazing that it's capable of producing 4,800 to 6,200 sandbags in just 8 hours with the help of only 3 people. Just imagine how many people it would take to fill 6,000 sandbags the old-fashioned way. This machine can use wet or dry materials to fill the bags, so basically whatever's on hand will work. And the machine fills the bag to a uniform size, so every bag from the Sandmaster has the same bulk and anti-flooding fighting prowess. Furthermore, the machine doesn't just fill the bags, it seals the bags securely so nothing spills, transports the bags, and then places the bags where they're needed most. Utilizing horsepower instead of manpower, the Sandmaster's website claims that it's the fire extinguisher for flood control of the 21st century. And given its versatility and ease of use, I'd have to agree. If sandbagging is needed, then why do it yourself when this machine can do it for you? Quick, efficient, and downright amazing. The Sandmaster really is the master of sandbags. Number 3. Maeslant Storm Surge Barrier. The Netherlands are prone to flooding given how low they lie. So between 1991 and 1997, the Maesland Barrier was built to protect the Dutch from flooding waters. The Maesland Barrier is a storm surge barrier on the Nieuwe Waterweg in South Holland, Netherlands. Now, this barrier works by responding to water level predictions that are calculated by a centralized computer system, which is called the BOS. This thing's ingenious because it closes automatically whenever Rotterdam is threatened, protecting this vulnerable area. This storm surge barrier has two barrier gates, each of them 210 meters long. They're also held by two 237-meter-long steel trusses. The main waterway of Rotterdam has a width of 360 meters. When a storm surge barrier is closed, it protects the entire width of the waterway. Now, this barrier was part of a project called the Delta Works. Now, these Delta Works were a series of construction projects aimed at protecting the land around the Rhine-Meuse-Scheldt Delta from the sea. This project was a massive undertaking and included a large variety of infrastructure like locks, dikes, levees, sluices, dams, and storm surge barriers. Initially, the project was going to reinforce existing dikes on the Port of Rotterdam region, but they realized pretty quickly that not only would it take at least 30 years to do it, it would also cost a lot of money. So they scrapped that plan and organized a competition to see if a company could come up with a quicker, cheaper solution. The problem stemmed from the fact that the barrier had to be located in the waterway that connects Rotterdam with the North Sea, so they couldn't piggyback on previous barriers like the Thames Barrier because they couldn't close off the shipping route. The winning design came from the BMK consortium. They designed the two large floating gates on both dikes of the waterway. This construction could be done in dry docks. The barrier didn't have to be underwater, so maintenance was a breeze, and it wouldn't cause any burden to passing ships. So it was a win-win for all. Today, this storm surge barrier is an essential flood invention that protects South Holland from the waters of the North Sea. Number 2. Assorted home protection inventions. Floods ravage everything in their path, from buildings to roadways to infrastructure, and homes are no exception. For anyone who lives in a flood region, they know all too well the terrifying effects of those rapid, rushing waters. Flood can cause so much damage to a home, and it happens so quickly, many people are caught off guard when it does happen. So naturally, there's a range of anti-flood inventions that are aimed at helping homeowners mitigate the effects of flood damage. Now, unlike sandbags, which require work and manpower, these anti-flood inventions are pretty easy to use, versatile, and cost-effective. The Water Gate Dam, for example, is a self-deploying dam that can be installed around the perimeter of a house. When the water begins to flow in, a pocket inside the barrier is filled and the dam grows in height. The water's stopped and then diverted and the home is protected. The Watergate Dam comes from a Canadian company and it's offered in several different lengths, ranging from 30 to 50 feet. And the beauty of this invention is that the pieces can be combined to create a barrier that suits the needs of the homeowner. Likewise, the water-inflated property barrier, also known as the WIP, is another effective anti-flood invention aimed at helping homeowners at their time of need. The system is a long and durable vinyl-coated polyester tube up to 150 feet long that uses the idea of fighting water with water. The barrier can be inflated with any water source, and once inflated, it provides a strong and heavy barrier against any incoming floodwaters. When those waters recede, the WIP can be deflated and packed away for future use. It's easy, quick to deploy, and it's very convenient to have on hand, especially if you live in an area prone to flooding. For something a little more solid, though, Flood Block offers exceptional anti-flood protection. The Flood Block system uses special plastic blocks that are connected to one another with clips. As such, these blocks can be positioned in any way that the owner chooses. These flood blocks can have a wide variety of shapes and sizes depending on what's needed. It's sort of like Lego. They stack and arrange the blocks and then clip them together. The flood block system can be easily deployed by just one person, and when the blocks aren't being used, they stack inside of each other so they save on space. The bottom of these blocks have foam padding, and this creates a seal under them to prevent any water from seeping underneath. The blocks are lightweight and affordable, and they're a great alternative to sandbags. And finally, for home anti-flood prevention, there's Aquabex Flood Guard. This flood guard is lightweight, reusable, and very simple to deploy. In fact, Aquabex is said to give the same protection as a permanent flood guard, with the ease and convenience of being removable. These flood guards can be installed pretty much everywhere around the home, including entrances and windows to help keep the water out where it really counts. The flood guards are easy to store since they're pretty small, and they don't take very long to set up, so they can be deployed pretty quickly, which is especially important when there's little advance warning of impending floodwaters. Aquabex prides itself on being a global leader in fighting floodwaters, and their products have helped thousands of homeowners ward off unwanted water to protect their homes. Number 1. Sponge cities. Yeah, we all know that sponges absorb water, and that's sort of the theory behind sponge cities. Instead of trying to divert or stop water, sponge cities are built to absorb water, in a sense. The idea comes from China, where flooding has reached historic levels in recent years. In fact, the city of Zhengzhou experienced the worst flooding in 1,000 years in 2021. The worst in 1,000 years. These floods were devastating, displacing almost 1 million people and killing at least 30. The problem continues as more than 433 rivers flooded and more than 23 million people were affected. So clearly, something needs to be done. This is coupled with water shortages throughout the country, so China's trying to find a way to use floodwaters. Sponge cities are part of China's eco-city design. In a sponge city, the city's designed to give water somewhere to go. They will have more green spaces, roofs that can absorb water, and more effective waterways. Sponge cities will use the storms rather than fight them, making way for more sustainable, more eco-friendly cities. The idea of a sponge city was first brought about in 2013 by Professor Yu. He suggested that China has the opportunity to implement new integrated urban water management strategies moving forward, and a sponge city is one such strategy. 2 different batches of 30 different pilot sponge cities have been implemented across China since 2014. These cities are experimenting with those strategies, and while sponge cities are still in their early stages and have some pretty hefty obstacles to overcome, like design and funding, the brilliance of the concept can't be overlooked. Using floodwater to help fight water shortages is a pretty good idea, and it might only be a matter of time before sponge cities come to fruition. For now, though, they are a potential city of the future. But as far as amazing anti-flood inventions go, well, inventing an entire city design that's anti-flood by nature has easily earned the sponge cities the top spot on this list of 15 amazing anti-flood inventions. I'll see you next time. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.